Y'all, it may be gray. It may be cold. It may be snowing outside, but it's still a great day to be in Brentwood. So thank you for coming. Right now, we're going to start with a prayer from Zach Benner, and we're going to move to a pledge and four-way test with Jeff Brown.
Let's please bow our heads. Do not fear. Do not be afraid. The most common phrase in the Bible. It's mentioned 305 times. Fear is crippling. It literally stops you from developing. It prevents you from acting to save yourself or others. It puts a block on your creative ambition and it stunts you. So I have to remind myself of this. God does not want us to live in fear. He wants us to live in a world without fear. We live in a broken world with all kinds of crazy things going on every day, including national issues, businesses closing, corruption, war, local issues in our own communities. It can be very hard and challenging not to live in fear because even our day-to-day lives are so uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen, if we're going to be safe in our surroundings. On top of these things, we have struggles in our own personal lives, including our jobs, finances, relationships, and other things that life piles up on us. We can't help but get caught up in that fear from time to time. Also, God has gifted each and every one of us with individual talents and dreams for us to develop, to use in the world to make a world a better, more peaceful place. Only you are you. Only you can do what God has in store for you and for the world. The fear of failure, the fear of abandonment, the fear of embarrassment, you name it. This fear is merely a fabrication in our minds put there by Satan to squash
I'm watching my rodeo meeting. I'll do exactly
any
that.
growth and abundance to disrupt God's plan. Trust in God and overcome this fear. Being fearful does not make you weak.
Well, I don't care what you have to have, okay?
Every one of us will have fear. But fear is an opportunity for courage. Without fear, we can never be courageous. Let us embrace this fear, give it to the Lord Jesus Christ, and overcome these obstacles and have faith that no matter what happens, the Lord will be there for us in this life or the next. Dear Lord, you know that we live in this crazy and chaotic world. You also know my struggles in my daily life. When life gets too much, please help me come to you. Calm my thoughts and emotions and open up my heart to your peace, comfort, and wisdom. Help me to not live in fear. Please reduce the feelings of fear and anxiety that plague me. Help me rest in you and trust in you as I navigate through this broken world. In your name, I pray, Jesus, amen. I'd like to give you a few tips on how we can continue to live without fear and overcome it. Number one, remember that God is with you. Take a minute, stop what you're doing and thinking, and remember that God is with you. He told us that he would never leave us nor forsake us. Number two, trust in God. Look up and tell God that even though you are afraid, you are trusting in him in this situation. Number three, find God's peace. It's easy for thoughts and emotions to get us all worked up. Instead, ask God to send his peace to your heart and silence your thoughts and emotions. And fourth, show love. What to do when fear overcomes you? There's a few things you can do when it becomes overwhelming. Number one, just take a deep breath. Number two, pray to God for help, peace, wisdom, comfort, and whatever else you need at that moment. Be grounded. Refer to one of the verses in the Bible and let it sink into your heart regarding fear. Remember that the Lord is with us wherever you go, no matter what happens. Talk to a trusted relative, friend, or therapist or pastor about your fears. I'd like to leave you with this. What is something that is currently causing you to have a fear in your life? How are you going to work through to overcome this? Be courageous today. Live as God wants us to in his loving peace. God bless you.
Please join me in the pledge to our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the four-way test. First is the truth. Second,
is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will build goodwill and better friendships?
fourth,
Will be beneficial to all concerned?
fifth.
Couldn't hope so.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the Friday, February 25th meeting of the Brentwood Rotary Club. My name is Drew Rogers and I am the secretary of the club this year. We do have one guest and a visiting Rotarian. So I'm going to begin with Jason Hulse, who has a guest that he would like to introduce.
Yeah, I have Lisa Futrell with me today. Met her through some networking groups. Great lady. She's with Bank of England Mortgage, so get to know her today.
Hey, Lisa.
I did learn that that's Bank of England, Arkansas, not the United Kingdom. Just make that clarification. And we also have a visiting Rotarian today, Representative Glenn Cassida from the Franklin Noon Club. Thank you for joining us today.
Something new today. The four-way test is a five-way test.
Yes.
I'm going to bring it back to my guy, Frank.
Thank you. President Crossley, back to you.
All right, thank you so much. Before we have Happy Bucks, Chief, while you swallow that last piece of meat, would you come on up here?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Do you know his size? Let me check something.
Chief, I realize today is one big day for you, and I hope you get through it without too many tears.
I've already cried several times.
I bet. We will certainly miss you, but you have promised us that you'll come back.
I will.
But we don't want you to leave Rotary, having been a member of this club for so many years and doing all that you've done, without offering you the opportunity to become an honorary member of our club. So Chief Hughes, you are now an honorary Rotarian. Congratulations.
We got a photo walk here. Oh, hey, well, I didn't get that part, but Sarah had offered me to be her guest every week, and she said the bank pays for it. So she said you can be my guest any week, and I'm like, I'm gonna take you up on that. And some other people had said the same thing. I just want to say this, guys. Being a member of this club has been a blessing to me, and it's because of the relationships that I made early on that has helped me do my job better. Because there's a lot of times you feel like a man on an island, and when you know you got people from these relationships in a club like this that have your back in good times and bad, it's reassuring. And the membership of this club and the relationships that I've made have been invaluable to me. And you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be back. Thank you.
Beth Dormany, you have Happy Bucks for us today.
All right, who's
Who's
happy?
happy?
We'll start over here.
Got a few happy bucks to offer. First of which is in this most dreadful time politically in the world, I'm happy we've got the nation's, the world's strongest military protecting us and our NATO partners. And I ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Very happy for my friend Jeff Hughes. I know this day has been a long time coming, and with excitement and dread, both all mashed up in the same day. Congratulations on 36 years of faithful service. Thank you very much. We're going to miss you. I'm happy for my friend Jim Colvin over here, the incoming Assistant Chief of Police. Happy to have him here today. And then also thankful we're going to be led by Chief Richard Hickey, who has been trained up and he's going to be a fantastic chief. Looking forward to working with him.
All right, who else is happy? Anybody on this side? Over there and come back.
Used to
celebrate your retirement. I'm going to Mexico for a week tomorrow morning. I'm happy.
That is happy. Who else is happy?
Alan Treadway.
There we go.
Let's see. I was on the phone this morning with Dan Jordyn, and everybody give their best to Dan when you see him next time. He's had a hard time, but he did tell me he was not going to make lunch today. He's in Orlando and he's suffering with 88 degrees and sunshine. So,
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
but everybody, when Dan comes back, you be sure and say hello to him.
All right. Who else is happy?
Somebody else? Really?
That was a short one. No one else
Right,
is
it
happy?
was. Well, thank you, Beth. Larry? Larry's got one.
We got a half happy person.
This is a reverse happy. That's for the 16 people who are here today who did not RSVP. That is why we have to set up another table. We are out of food. We've got, I think there's a couple of people here that did not get a lunch. These folks, I sent you, I don't, the system sent you an email today. Go on the dang email, click register, and you're done. 36 people did it. Great, thank you for 36 who are here. You did a great job of registering. For you other 16, yes, with the program. I mean, it's embarrassing that you're not having a food. Please help us out. It's easy. If you're getting confused, call me. I'll tell you how to do it. Okay? Thank you.
When you sign up too, all you do have to click a button. It asks you for your phone and all this other stuff. You don't have to put that in there. All you have to do is just click the button. Not only that, but we also found out from Drew today that if you did or did not, either way, sign up. When you get your reflections, if you look down at the bottom, it will say you are registered or you are not registered as a reminder for you to know that you do need to register, even if you thought you did or you forgot, you thought you did, but it'll tell you, no, you haven't. So make sure you do that. That'll be great. And don't forget, next week, Larry's going to be talking to us about the golf tournament. So that'll have a whole lot to do with having people here, happy, fed. All right, good. All
We got
right.
one more happy over here.
Yeah, okay, one more happy.
I'm happy, but I'm also really excited. I'm excited for that opportunity tomorrow for the leadership in Clarksville. So yeah, I would say I'll switch the happiness to excitement. So
Oh.
excited for that.
Zach started RLI, Rotary Leadership Institute, and Jane, were you there with them too as well? Yeah, who else went? Was that just you two? All right, RLI is a
We got
great
one more
thing.
happy over here.
Oh, one more happy, Curry.
I need rollerblades. Here we go.
Larry, there's two ways you can handle that. Either charge them double or sick Jeff Hughes after him.
There you go. Jim can do it. All right. Any more happy bugs? All right. Next Monday, this coming Monday, we were scheduled to give a $50,000 check to the city of Brentwood for the inclusive playground. It's gone up. We will now be giving a $100,000 check. So that makes a total of $650,000 that this club has raised with the community for the inclusive playground. So thank y'all very much. And the deal is, if you can make it just for a little bit, it's at 7 o'clock, City Hall. If you can go support Sarah and the members of the committee, please just go, and then you can get up and leave after that. But having a lot of people there to show that this was a huge effort by the community would really be appreciated. 7 o'clock Monday, 28th. All right. April 23rd, don't forget, put that on your calendar. It's Pancake Day. And if you still want to go have some good music and some good fun at Rotary District Conference, that's in Muscle Shoals. That's the 28th through May 1st. Let me know. I can drive. I'm going to drive, so you can come with me if you want. There will be a short meeting right after this meeting with the board of directors. And also there's a meeting of the membership committee by the fireplace. So don't forget to go to those as you are asked. And now for the Rotary moment, if we can. Now, this is a busy slide, but if you've ever wondered, this is trivia day. If you've ever wondered what the northernmost Rotary Club, the southernmost Rotary Club, the one that's the most isolated, what's not on here is the largest club, Oklahoma City, over 650 in that club, not 1,000, 650. The smallest club, I'm sure 2 or 3 members here and there. It's interesting. They can be really, really small. One of the statistics at the beginning there is if we've got over 46,000 Rotary clubs, so it'd take you 95 years to go to all of them. So probably you wouldn't get to finish even at that point because there'll be another 1,000 more probably by the time you got through, if not more than that. The last statistic I saw, it took 85 years for 35,000. So there you go. Also, we had this largest district has several countries in it. So if you think our district's big because we've got Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee and Texas. I mean, that's huge. And Texas and Oklahoma, right? Thanks, Steve. So most remote, I've actually been by this. It's in Papeete, Tahiti. And I only saw it because it was a Rotary sticker by the little hut. And it's interesting because I wasn't a Rotarian at that time, but since my family was Rotary, I thought that was very interesting. I saw that. Southernmost is going to be in Antarctica, and they speak 3 languages there. But most of the time they speak Spanish. And then they both meet on Wednesday night, so they have to have enough Rotarians to be at both of them. I thought that was interesting. And the highest and the lowest is going to be El Centro, California at 40 feet below sea level. And the highest is the El Aguilar Club in Argentina at 16,000 feet. 16,000 feet. Y'all, it's hard to find that when you ski in the United States. I don't think you can find it that high. So the next slide is just trivia, also famous people. And since we're getting ready to have 2 very famous people talk to us for our program today, I thought that it might be good to kind of go over, this isn't everybody that I found, but there are going to be so many people that you'll recognize here. And at the end, you'll see that we have several presidents of the United States. I know this is a lot of stuff. I hope y'all can read this, but you know, Margaret Thatcher is the only woman I could find. They're your presidents. Also, Hillary was a member. So just in case you knew. All right. So don't say that you can't start your next conversation with Rotary without a little bit of trivia, and you can remember some of these folks and show your knowledge of Rotary. Okay, so I heard Jordyn's going to go second and Jane is going to go first. So Jane Covington, our president-elect, would you come forward and talk to us today about you?
Thank you, Betsy. So I'm going to share with you guys today a little bit, just some basic bio information, and then I'll share with you a little bit about my career path and what my current job entails, how Rotary came into play for me. And then I'm going to end with a short, very personal story that I haven't told before. So hopefully I'm going to get through that. So I am from Martinsville, Virginia, which is a small town in Southwest Virginia, just over the North Carolina border. And its claim to fame is that there's a NASCAR track if you're a fan. I'm not, but if you are, there's a track there. I'm the youngest of 5 children. My dad is a retired circuit court judge, and at 93, he still drives better than I do. My husband will tell you that, you know, that bar is set pretty low. My mom passed away about 6 years ago, and I am still missing her terribly, and assume I always will. I'm married to Crane Jones, whom you all see exactly once a year at the anniversary banquet. I have 2 kids who have 4 legs and bark, and their names are Moonshine and Whiskey. I'm privileged to be the stepmother to Crane's 2 adult children, Adam and Stacy. Adam is a minister at Brentwood Methodist, and I think some of you may know him. He has the cutest almost 2-year-old that you've ever seen. Her name is Jane Bradley, and I am happy that have the privilege of being her JJ. Stacy has 3 boys who all play football and have more energy than I can even deal with. So my college path, where I did not go to college, might be easier to tell you than where I did go to college. Started out at the University of South Carolina, and then I transferred to Elon College. It's Elon University now, but back in the day, it was college. And then from there on to Old Dominion University. My dad used to threaten to buy me a motorhome so I could just drive myself to the next school and save him the move. My degree is in English with emphasis in professional writing. The plan was to take a break from school and work for a couple of years and then go back to law school, and that never really happened. After college, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, because my sister lived there and there's a beach. I then got a job through a temp agency at CSX working in the real estate department. As I learned more about the company, I decided that it was a place that I would actually like to explore permanent employment. And that was kind of, just because of all the interesting facets of the company. There's so many different components to railroading. And as you may have noticed from my college path, I do like variety. So I asked my boss in the real estate department for an introduction to someone in corporate communications because I thought, that's where my degree would be most relevant. And so I went to meet with that person one day and I asked what I could do that might help me to be considered for the next job opening in that department. And he suggested that I start writing stories for the employee newsletter. And now 26 years later, I am still around at CSX. So at this point in my career with 26 years, exactly half of that was spent in corporate communications and now half in government affairs. So on the Corp Com side, I was on the media relations team. And I have to say that my favorite part, I was an on-site spokesperson for the company. And I feel like I'm saying a whole lot of back thens. I guess I'm a little older than I feel, but back then we did used to have a lot more train derailments than we have today. Thanks to technology and better equipment design, there just aren't that many of them these days. But we also used to send an on-site spokesperson to every single one. And so that was something that I got to do. And I love crisis communications. I don't know what that says about my mental state or whatever else, but I'm the weirdo that in a crisis, I get really calm and I can focus, unlike the way I operate in my daily life, but really enjoyed that. And I know that this is not a time for a CSX commercial, but I have to say that in a crisis situation, the resources that we bring to the table are amazing. And it's just everything that we do to protect both the community and the environment. And it is really cool to be a part of that. So anyway, at some point, the decision was made to co-locate someone from the media team in the Northeast because, we were finding that coverage about the company was just so much less positive there. The climate is much less business friendly. And they thought, let's put someone in that area so that they can develop relationships with reporters and, hopefully improve the company image. And guess who drew the short straw? So after about a year and a half of living in Pittsburgh and shoveling my sidewalks every afternoon, the Nashville government affairs job opened up and I asked to try my hand at government affairs and also to get out of the frozen tundra. And so I thought that learning the rail industry was difficult, but I'm telling you, it pales in comparison to learning the ins and outs of government affairs and lobbying. I bet Representative Cassida could attest. I mean, everything, it's Yeah, and so every state does things differently, every local government does things differently. So anyway, it probably took me a good 5 years to feel like, I was even kind of comfortable in my own skin in this job. So I started here in 2005 as the resident vice president of government affairs covering Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. It's kind of a weird title, but it just, you are the resident VP in your territory. And my husband at home calls me the residential vice president. So then about a year and a half ago, I became a regional vice president of government affairs. And so I oversee about a third of our 23 state plus part of Canada system on the government affairs side. And so what does my job entail? The primary responsibility is exactly what you would think it would be. It's advocating for pro-business and pro-railroad legislation and fighting against legislation that makes it onerous for us or our customers to do business. I do a lot of proactive work to try to get any issues that are brought to my attention resolved before they become legislation. My goal is not to have met an elected official in our territory for the very first time when there's an issue. So travel a whole lot, live out of my car. I've got some contract lobbyists that help me in my states as well, but try to be as proactive as I can. And I will say that, despite all that work, the term being railroaded came from somewhere, right? So despite the reputation of railroads that we can't seem to shake, no matter how hard we try, most of us are really good to work with. We'll do anything we can to adjust our operations, to minimize our impact on communities and to be a good neighbor. Some railroads do a better job of that than others. And I really honestly think that we're at the top of that list. And we also give a ton back to the communities in a whole bunch of different ways, but we don't publicize it because that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it to build those relationships because we're going to need those communities at some point ourselves. And so lots of ways that we do good things in communities, which I won't get into here for time purposes, but speaking of giving back, part of my job also is managing a charitable budget for my region. And then I do all kinds of other duties as assigned. And so examples of those would be serving as a company witness in lawsuits. That's fun. Issues management, support for our federal and regulatory affairs team. Right now, we happen to have 2 precedent-setting cases before the Surface Transportation Board. So it's kind of all hands on deck right at the moment, at the same time that I have 3 legislatures in session. So good times. And then let me tell you sort of how Rotary came into play and how that's worked with my career. When I first moved here in 2005, we had a PR firm on retainer, and I asked the senior partner of the firm, what do I need to do to get connected with business and political leaders? And he said, you need to join the Downtown Rotary Club. And so that's what I did. And it worked. I met so many people, from elected officials to business leaders. And I ended up dealing with those folks later in my career from a professional standpoint. And because of Rotary, I already had that common ground with them. And so, there was sort of a baseline trust already established through Rotary. And it just, really has made my job much easier, frankly. So then I was assigned to a big project in Birmingham, and it required that I would have to travel every week for 3 years to Birmingham. And so I left on Mondays, and the downtown club met on Mondays. And so I thought, I guess I could resign from Rotary, but while I joined Rotary for the professional benefits that I just talked about, during my time being a member, I developed the same heart for service that you all have. And I was like, I can't leave Rotary. So I went to the executive director of the downtown club, Michelle's mom, Suzanne. And Suzanne said, let me connect you with a friend of mine named John Miles. And so here I am. So that's kind of it on the career and the Rotary path. And I do want to close by sharing a story that that I kind of consider my greatest accomplishment outside of Rotary. And it also sums up who I am in exactly 2 words, according to my brother. So my brother Ben passed away about 3 years ago. He struggled with addiction for most of his adult life. And therefore, he wasn't really that successful on the career front, and he did not have a lot of money. But he was just the nicest guy. Everybody who knew him absolutely loved him. And he was one who he really wanted to beat his addiction, but despite his best efforts and ours, it just, he couldn't quite kill the monster. And he hated to accept help from anybody, whether it was financial or otherwise. He did not want help from anybody. And so, he ended up with lung cancer, and he needed a special procedure to diagnose it because of the location of the tumor. So he was on Medicaid, and they would not cover the procedure. And my dad was more than willing to fork out the $40,000 for the procedure. But my brother knew how much it cost, and he would not accept it. He was refusing the procedure because that's how he was. He'd rather just not, he'd rather suffer than have somebody spend $40,000 on him. And this story is long and convoluted, and you would laugh at some of the things I did to pull this off. But the result is that I filed a grievance with Virginia's version of TennCare, and I was granted a fair hearing. And I tapped into every relationship that I could, both on the personal side and the professional side. And I built a heck of a case. And just before the date for the fair hearing, I got a phone call from the chief medical officer for the insurance company. And he said, Ms. Covington, we've decided that we're going to cover your brother's procedure. And I said, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, but you're not talking about a one-time exception, right? You're talking about changing the procedure. And there was a bit of back and forth there, but they agreed to change the procedure. And so, I got the procedure covered not only for Ben, but for everyone who needed it and couldn't afford it. And my brother's pulmonologist told me later that he said to Ben, boy, your sister must know some important people to have gotten this policy change. And Ben's response was, nah, she's just a combination of a pit bull and a nag.
Your new president, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that last statement. And so we go from a new president to a new member. Not much anymore. You've been here so long. It's really like you're not, but we want to hear all about Jordyn.
Hi, y'all. I'm not quite sure I'm supposed to follow all that up. Tap dancing, I don't think will quite work, but we can try. So as she said, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Jordyn. I've been with the club now for about working, getting close to a year. I think I joined about April of last year and have had nothing but an absolute blast with y'all. So just to give you a little bit of background on who I am, where I come from. People ask me all the time, oh, it's already up there. People ask me all the time, where am I from? And my response always is everywhere. So I grew up, well, let's put it this way, born in Washington State, then moved to Wisconsin. So I'm a Green Bay Packer fan for the rest of my life, despite whatever's about to happen to Aaron Rodgers. And then from Wisconsin, we moved to California. All of these moves were because of my dad. He is a pastor and has been my entire life, although he should have been a lawyer. And then post California, I moved after college into Arizona, from Arizona to Colorado, and from Colorado here. I get asked all the time, which one is your favorite? It's really hard to pick one, and you might be surprised, Tennessee might have it. So I've been very, very blessed to live in all of these states, but at the end of the day, Nashville and Tennessee, Brentwood especially, has helped in making myself feel at home. And a lot of it has to do with people like you and this club in itself. So I will thank you very much for that. So when I told my mom, who is both my parents still in Northern California, when I told her that I was speaking today at Rotary, she was so excited. And she had to dig up this lovely picture of me at RILA, which was my first ever introduction to Rotary, thanks to the Upcountry Amateur Club. And they sponsored me junior year of high school. So this is the young Jordyn. And fast forward to very many years later to where I started looking into different clubs in the area here in Brentwood. And people were asking, well, why Rotary? Why is that the club you chose? And a lot of it has to do with that experience at RILA. I learned so much and took a lot with me, met several friends, and just had an experience that I don't think many kids at RILA ever forget. So if y'all are working in that world within Rotary and have spent your years towards that, I will tell you from personal experience, thank you. And thank you for those kids who you have sponsored over the years. Tell you a little bit more about me and who I am. I am the youngest of 4. So 3 older brothers. I am not afraid to get on a football field or throw a punch somewhere. They taught me well. And then spent most of my life, like I said, in California, and it's not the California you think. My little upcountry Amador County life was very, very sheltered, very much so play in the dirt and go have fun outside. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I ended up going to school in Southern California in Riverside at the good old California Baptist University. If y'all are ever familiar with that, most people aren't. It was pretty podunk, about 4,000 kids when I went. Now it's 12,000 plus. So I tell them you're welcome for all of the money I gave you for your new gym, because ours was about the size of a closet. But anyways, studied kinesiology there, and I ended up nowhere close to that, but was initially going for my physical therapy degree and absolutely loved it, but did not want to spend that money on grad school. So I went a different direction. Ended up getting into the world of sales, which is very bizarre for me. And if you were to have asked my parents back when I was 10 to through high school even, what is your daughter going to do? Never in their life would they have dreamed this little introvert would be in sales. I hated making phone calls. I hated talking to anyone I didn't know. And here I am today making cold calls and just talking for a living. So thanks, parents. So my initial career, once I decided against physical therapy, like I said, I ended up in sales for home health and worked specifically with orthopedic surgeons post-surgery, kind of helping our patients get through their rehab process into the home health side, and kind of walking them through making sure they had all the components they needed for that recovery process. Then transitioned due to relocation into the hospital world. Once I moved to Colorado, I had the calling to work in a safety net hospital in downtown Denver, which you see so many things and realize just how blessed you are in a world like that. Worked mainly on the emergency department floor, and goodness gracious, every day was different. But it was a blast. It was very humbling, and such an experience that I will never forget. In that year, the few years that I lived in Colorado, one of the main reasons I was there was for my grandmother. And I'm saying this to kind of segue into where I am today. I didn't know too much about the world of senior living. It's where I'm landed now. But thanks to my grandmother, who is still rocking and rolling, she has led me into my career path without even knowing it. So I moved to Colorado because of my initial career path of physical therapy. I was the girl that all of my family called, hey, I've got a strained elbow. What do I do for this? Hey, I just twisted my ankle. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. And so I was the go-to. Kind of like, how do I start this DVR? It was just, that was me. So I ended up moving to Colorado to be with my grandmother as she went through several different surgeries, hip breaks, knee surgeries, the whole gamut. This lady is one of my heroes. So moved there for her to kind of help her through this process. And in the process of her going from surgery the day before Christmas, might I add, to rehab, to what we term in the senior living industry respite. So a short-term stay in an assisted living community, all the way back to getting home. In those moments and in those months of her recovery, I realized just how broken the system can be and just how unfortunate it is to see the neglect and the abuse and things that can happen in my industry. So I realized in those moments that I was in the wrong place, that I had a calling to make that world better for everyone else's grandmothers, moms, aunts, uncles, whoever it is that I got to come in contact with. That was why I do and why I chose to make that transition, because I adore my grandmother, but I also adore everyone else within that world. They've gone through so much. They have so many stories. They have so much wisdom. And sometimes, unfortunately, they get left behind. And so lead me to where I am today. So I left sales altogether, actually, and went and dove into caregiving in a local community because I wanted to learn from the bottom up. How does this thing work? What's going on? How is it run? What's happening behind these doors? Which was a blast, honestly. Caregivers get way less credit than they deserve. They work for way less money than they deserve. They put in so much hard work, and for the rest of my life, I will preach about that because they are very special individuals. And you learn upon hire if you hired the right person or you didn't, because people are in that job for the right reason. And if they're not, you can see it in a heartbeat, and they are typically do not last long. So once I worked in the caregiving world, I then transitioned from there, and this is what brought me to Brentwood. Worked in the corporate office at a location whose home office is in Maryland Farms, and that taught me a lot as well. I wanted to know everything from that side, get to know, okay, how does the top side of this work? What's going on the corporate level to help those people who are at the location and what's going on there. So I spent a handful of years there and got to learn quite a bit. But the biggest reason I left that was because of COVID. So everything went down, everything shut down. We stayed in the office for a little bit longer and got sent home in April. So I worked from home in that corporate world, teaching individuals how to talk to families. What do you do? Because of that company's name, a lot of people call them first. So how do you talk to a family who's like, I don't really know what's going on, that my mom needs more care than what we can do. What do I do? So I got the lovely privilege of what I call being a grandmother to these people who are learning how to talk to people. So I got these kiddos, I say, even though I'm not that much older than them, but I got these kiddos who are just hungry to learn. And they came fresh out of college and just looking for a good quality job. And I was able to teach them the ins and outs of senior living, all the things that you don't say. Please never respond with, oh, I understand what you're going through. Please no. Every situation is different, no matter who you are. If you've seen the same thing is not happening to them. So please never assume you know someone's situation. But anyways, I got them for 5 weeks, got to train them up and teach them the world of senior living, how to talk to people. And then I got to send them on their merry way to their supervisors. And then this was the part where the grandma came in. I got to come in, check in, make them cookies, make sure they're doing okay, and then come on back to my next class. So it was a blast, but due to COVID, we were then told at the end of the year that we were staying home forever. You think this whole introverted girl would be totally okay with that? I can't. I've learned that I'm an extroverted introvert and I need social interaction to survive. So very different scenario than what I initially thought. So that scenario came up and I told my boss, I'm sorry, I have loved everything that I've done here, but I need human interaction. So that then led me to going back into the community. And I have been blessed to work at Morning Point of Brentwood, for those of you who are familiar, which is right down the road here. We are an assisted living and memory care community, and I get to work with 70 of my adopted grandparents. They are the best people on the planet, and I will fight for them all day long. I have always, my job is sales and marketing, but if you know me and you know me in that community, I do a lot more than just sales and marketing. You wear all the hats. If somebody's out sick, you jump in and you take over that job. If somebody's mom is having a hard day, you jump in and you take over. It's just kind of the way things work in that world. But that's why I love it, is because we do everything that we can in that building to make sure that everyone's taken care of. So it's an absolute blessing to be where I am today, and it has led me to y'all. So a little bit of me and who I am and why I am where I am.
For those of us who've been caretakers, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Questions for our illustrious speakers? I'm sure you may have some. We've got some time. Y'all come up here and use this mic so the Zoom folks can
This is
hear
for
us.
Jane. The typical railroad track I see when I cross over it, are those public domain or are they owned by a particular railroad company? And who is some of CSX's major competitors?
So railroads do own we're all private companies. A lot of people assume that we're, sort of quasi-governmental or something, but they're privately owned companies. And we do own and maintain our own rights of way. We own different amounts of, property on each side of the rails, in various areas. But the general rule of thumb is 50 feet on either side of center line of track. And then I think so our major competitor in the east is Norfolk Southern. So it's kind of like there are two big railroads in the west, that's Burlington Northern and Union Pacific. And in the east, the big ones are CSX and Norfolk Southern. And so we, I guess some people consider trucking our competitors because as we've gotten a lot more efficient, we now can sort of compete for some of the trucking business, but I would characterize that more as a partnership because we do more, sort of the long haul moves and the truckers do the short haul moves. And, so there may be some competition in there, but it's much more of a partnership. Does that answer your question? Okay. Norfolk Southern.
Jane, this is it's not so much a question as it is a recommendation and pertains to everybody. Just yesterday, I finished reading the book, Nothing Like It in the World. And it's the story of the construction of the Union Pacific from Omaha to Ogden, Utah, and the construction of the Central Pacific from Sacramento to Promontory Point, Utah. And it's an absolutely amazing story of how the first transcontinental railroad was built and the troubles and the difficulties and the absolutely miserable government oversight that went on during all that. I think everybody would find it very interesting.
There's also a Netflix show called Hell on Wheels. Have you seen that? I couldn't watch it because I can't do violence, but my husband loved it.
I was recently, like this week, there was a story on TV about Amtrak going from Nashville to Atlanta. How would that affect CSX and or would it, or how would they do that if Amtrak doesn't have tracks?
Sure. So Amtrak, they do own their own tracks in a couple of different areas, but for the most part, they do run over freight railroads. And so the freight railroads are not opposed to passenger rail. We just need to make sure that it's implemented in the right way. You have to have double the distance between a passenger train and a freight train for safety purposes. So it takes up double the capacity on the tracks for a freight train. And there is an established process by which they gain access to freight tracks that includes a study. It's called a rail traffic controller study, and it looks at, you plug in, what time the freights are running, what time the Amtrak trains would conceivably run, and the modeling spits out, where the bottlenecks would be and what infrastructure would be necessary in order to mitigate those bottlenecks. So it's super important. I mean, and I think we're all seeing that right now with the supply chain in the shape that it's in. You really have to have that study completed and that data in order to make sure that you're not doing something that would further mess up the supply chain. And additionally, it can have impacts on communities in terms of block crossings and, trains having to wait for another one to pass. So the study is really important. And one other point about Amtrak is that in 2015, the Passenger Rail Reinvestment Act was passed, and that changed their model from being federally subsidized to being state subsidized. So right now you're seeing a whole lot of chatter about, and this is good. I'm glad you're here, Representative Cassida. This works out well. So, you're seeing a lot of different routes being thrown around in the state of Tennessee, and nobody has yet said that it would all be state and local government subsidized. And, all public transportation is subsidized to a degree. So it's just something that you've got to, you need all the information. And unfortunately, right now, we're seeing a lot of, excitement and frenzy about the possibility of a whole bunch of different routes, but there's, we just need some more facts, I think, so that the policymakers can make a good decision.
My question is for Jordyn. Jordyn, you can stay up here, Jay. I'm sure there'll be other. But Jordyn, who was your sponsor into the club, and what drew you to the Brentwood Club over all the other Rotary clubs in the area?
My sponsor came from our club in Pioneer, California, which is a podunk. Literally, you blink, you miss it. No stoplights, no nothing. It's just kind of there. So our club there, called Upcountry Rotary. And honestly, I can't remember exactly who, if there was a specific individual, but so can't go too much further from that. But what made me draw into the Brentwood Noon Rotary was, one, location. Due to where I work, with being very close, Brentwood was obviously my choice as far as wanting who I wanted to get connected with. But then after going through, honestly, Keeley, you were one of the instrumental parts for me in wanting to dive more into this club specifically. And mainly just of how you led this club, even through the Zoom life that it was when I first came on. I was still drawn in that moment. Even though my first handful of meetings were all Zoom, it was still something that was very intriguing, and things were happening that made me want to continue on and growing from that side.
Hey, Jane, I'm gonna put you on the spot again, but
Oh, thank you, Sybil.
I think we've all seen these egregious train robberies, and I think it's Union Pacific in Los Angeles. We've seen those images. Has CSX had any issues, or have they
We
not
have.
have those issues?
We have. So Class 1 railroads actually all have their own police departments, not security departments, but actual, police officers that are certified and have the same powers as their community counterparts. Am I right about that? Okay, good. Making sure I'm not misspeaking with a bunch of police officers in the room. But hey, yeah, that's right. Hello. And so we are seeing nothing to the degree that you've seen on TV with Union Pacific, but I will say that some really bad areas for us have been Memphis and Birmingham. I have myself been in the car with railroad police officers in Birmingham and watched train cars being unloaded in broad daylight. I mean, we're seeing, more, I think, gang activity that is coming into play here, but something that we take very seriously. And our railroad police have to partner with state and local police to try to, watch that type of thing and mitigate it.
I have a question for Jordyn. Jordyn, you kind of know me a little bit.
Little bit,
So
Larry. Thanks
you'll,
to golf.
you'll learn a little bit more, but so sometimes I have real serious questions like all these questions. Sometimes I have questions like this. So
Bring it on.
So I'm a legitimate senior citizen and I play golf. And I've had.
You play golf?
Yeah. And I've had like these pain, I've had a number of pains in different places. So since you've got this PT background, I'm figuring we can go to you and you can help us with our aches and pains.
I
and
can give
things
you
and
some
club- I mean, it's a
exercises to
club
work on.
thing. Is it good? What's that? So
Not
my
an 8-track?
My second question is inquiring minds want to know. So you're over at your senior center and
Mm-hmm.
you're helping all these folks and you're saying you wear different hats. How many old guys have hit on you?
Today?
Is it a hearing problem?
It depends on the day. Today it's been 2, but give me over a month span, it'll be a bit more. I got asked the other day, just yesterday, actually. I wore bright red lipstick, which usually you can't tell because I'm wearing a mask, but in my office, I don't wear it. So I had my mask off in one of my lovely residents. God love him. Yeah, bless his little heart. See, I'm learning. He came up to me and he just goes, "Do you kiss on the first date?" Said Charlie, "No, unfortunately, I don't."
Oh, we got one more, Larry. Jordyn.
Been a lot of surgeries, all that kind of stuff. And yes, you can almost stop there.
Oh, thank you.
Did y'all hear that last comment? He said he wouldn't hit on her though. So, yeah. All right. Thank y'all so much. We just love having you here as members of the club. So thank you so much. All right. Welcome to Representative Casta and our visitors today. Appreciate you coming, Lisa. We have announcement of board meeting and membership meetings right after this. We also have one last thought slide from one of my favorite people that just has unique things to say very often, but a bad attitude is like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you're not gonna go anywhere. So just a lasting thought for you to remember as the week goes on. Please, anybody have any more announcements for the good of Rotary? Then please help put up tables and put chairs against the walls. And we are adjourned. I really want people to go, but I mean.